Hi everyone, I'm Kat and welcome to my channel, Naturally Beautiful Girl. So today I'm going to be doing a very in-depth review of the new Honest Beauty eyeshadow palette. And I'm also going to be showing you how to get two different eye looks using this palette. I'll do those two looks at the end of this video. The first look will be the look I am wearing right now, which is definitely utilizing more of the cool toned purple shades in the palette. The second look is the look that I was wearing in my big overview of all the new relaunched Honest Beauty makeup looks. That was the previous video, the eye look I had in that one. I'll link that video up above so you can hear my thoughts on the other Honest Beauty products that have been relaunched, and also so you can kind of see what that eye look looks like as well. So those two eye looks will be at the end of this video, but now let's jump right into the review of the eyeshadow palette itself. The eyeshadow palette is really nice. It has a very nice weight to it. The packaging is beautiful. It's this white packaging with these peachy pops of color. I think it's beautiful. I think it's stunning. And it has a nice large mirror in it. I'm trying not to blind you. So it is a quite nice palette. It really does remind me of a conventional beauty palette. It really has that feeling of something you could pick up in Sephora or Ulta. So I really do appreciate that about this palette. And also I'm a big fan of having a mirror in the palette because I know it's not as environmentally friendly, but really it does help with traveling. Like, this is a palette for me that is very easy to travel with. It's a manageable size, it has a big mirror, it kind of checks all the boxes, and I can get a lot of different looks using just a single palette. I'm not like the biggest traveler, like I'm not going away every other weekend, but I think I do travel quite a bit, you know, even if it's just for a weekend getaway or something like that. I always appreciate having makeup products that are easy to travel with, and so this is definitely one I can see myself traveling with. In this palette you get 10 different eyeshadow shades. There are mattes, there are kind of more shimmers. There's this shadow over here that's like very glittery, and then you have these two larger pans of a matte black eyeshadow and a matte white eyeshadow. And to be honest, I think this is rather brilliant because the only other palette I know of off the top of my head that comes with like a matte white and a matte black eyeshadow is the Found like Nude 10 eyeshadow palette that also has these two matte shades, and really those are quite important shades I find for getting a really nice eye makeup look. I am a huge fan of using like a matte cream or white shade to put in my crease to help eyeshadows blend out, and the matte black shade is always a great shade that you can use to line your upper or lower lash line if you want to give a little bit of definition. The first thing I'm going to talk about is what you may notice in my palette is you may notice the edges around my palette are a bit dirty, and that is because these eyeshadows are not that firmly pressed. They are like when you dip your brush into them, you get a bit of like kickback in the pan, so there's some dust that starts flying. And it's not anything unmanageable, but it definitely is a softer pressed shadow. And so it has been getting my palette dirty, and I've tried to clean it, but I'm actually have not had the best of luck trying to get it clean. I did try and clean it before the video, but when I just used like a paper towel with some water on it, I wasn't able to actually get the palette clean. That is something to think about with this palette. It still is an amazing palette, and for me the dustiness really doesn't bother me. You just want to be careful when you're dipping your brush in to use one of the shadows that you aren't digging in too hard, because you're going to get a lot of eyeshadow off by just like barely dipping your brush in. And what I find for me though is because the shadows aren't pressed as firmly, they're very easy to get a lot of pigment with them. And honestly, I would prefer to have a softer shadow, one that I can get a lot of pigment coming off and onto my brush, than having to like really dig in the eyeshadow palette to get color. So that's just my personal preference. It's how I prefer my eyeshadows. I also find these eyeshadows to be really easy to blend. Like, that's always a worry you have with eyeshadows is, are they gonna blend really easily? And these do. So I really like that about this eyeshadow palette as well. And I mentioned this in my other video, but I really like the colors they selected for this palette because it's a very neutral, very everyday, very wearable eyeshadow palette. And also what I like about it is you have a mixture of warm and cool tones. So you have these like warmer shades over here, and then you have some like cooler shades over here. And like this taupe shade here, I've used it today with like this more purpley look. I've also used it with like this warmer brown matte shade and kind of gone in a more warm direction with this palette. So I think no matter what your preferences are in eyeshadow, that you can get use out of this. And I'm normally not that much of a cool toned eyeshadow girl. I normally do gravitate towards warmer tones, but I find that these cool tones are very wearable, very flattering, very easy to work with. And honestly, like this more cool toned eyeshadow look that I've done today, I really do like it. I enjoy it. And it's one that I've done multiple times using this palette. So it is something that looks good, I feel comfortable wearing. And I also love the warm toned looks I can get as well. For me, the only shadow that is missing is a light shimmery shade that I can use for like inner corner highlight or a brown bone highlight. The lightest shimmery shade is this one right here, which really is not light enough for me to use as a highlight shade. I have very fair porcelain skin, so I really have to have shades that are like almost white, like very light cream to white shades with some shimmer in order to actually have those shades work as a highlight. Because really the only highlighting shade you have in here is this matte white. And for me, I do try to use that as a highlight. Like that is what I put in my inner corner highlight, and that is what I use to try and highlight my brow bone. But part of the issue I have is that this shade is rather close to my skin tone. In fact, when I go to swatch it, you're really not going to see it that much. So not having a really good shimmery highlight shade is my only complaint about this palette, though oftentimes what I will do is I will use whatever I use on my cheeks and highlight my inner corners with that. So often I reach for my Root White Gold highlighter, and then I can also use that as my inner corner highlight. And when I'm traveling, I'm going to be bringing a highlighter with me anyway, so I kind of factor that in with the palette that I'm not going to be traveling like only with this palette. I'm also going to bring a face highlighter, so I can use that face highlighter as an inner corner highlight, but it would just be nice for the sake of completeness to have a lighter inner corner highlight shade in this palette. This shade over here, this warm brown shade, this is a matte shade. This purpley shade here is also a matte shade. This shade right here, this kind of deeper brown, is a matte shade. This even deeper brown over here is a matte shade as well, and then the black and the white are also matte. This shade here, this taupey shade, is a kind of shimmery shade. This shade here is a very glittery, this kind of gold shade. And then this shade right here, this brown shade, also has a bit of shimmer in it as well. All right, so here are all the shades swatched on my arm. I started at the top row and moved across. I am going to also be posting a picture of these swatches on my Instagram, so you can check them out there. But you can see that the pigment on these shadows is really incredible. A couple of the shades I had to swatch like a couple times to build up the pigment, but you know, you can see that you are definitely going to get pigment when you apply them to your eyelids. So I'm really impressed by the pigmentation of these shadows. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of them. This is the warm brown shade, the matte warm brown shade that I love using as a crease shade. This shade right here is that kind of taupey metallic shade. If I move my wrist, you can see it kind of catching the light. I have that all over my lid today. I love that shade. I really like this shade. I love this kind of taupey shade as well. This is the light matte purple shade that I have as a transition shade today in my crease. I love that shade too. This shade here, okay, this shade is that really metallic shade, this shade over here in the palette. So that shade does not swatch well, and I will be the first person to say that. It is a very chunky, very glittery shade. You have to be careful when you're working with it because you will get a lot of fallout. And because it is such a chunky, glittery shade, it really doesn't swatch very well. So there it is on my arm. For me to get that shade to work, you really need to be putting it on top of some sort of like sticky eye primer base. So I typically will either use the Silk Natural Stickum eyeshadow primer or the Alima Pure eyeshadow primer. Both of those work really well with that eyeshadow. What you'll want to do is you'll want to apply the eyeshadow primer, and then while it's still tacky, apply the eyeshadow on top, and that will really stick the eyeshadow in place, helps to prevent fallout, and really does intensify the shadow. And for that reason, I really like to apply this shade with my fingers rather than a brush. I will be using this shade in my second makeup look, so you can see that shade in action and how I can really intensify it on the eyes with a good eyeshadow primer. Yeah, so this row down here is probably my least favorite row. I tend to not wear a lot of darker eyeshadows. I did use some today to kind of build up and intensify my eyeshadow look. I'm not a smoky eyeshadow girl, so I don't really tend to gravitate towards the darker shades, but I really do appreciate having them in here, especially if you do have a deeper skin tone. I think the addition of these shades really does make the palette quite wearable for a large variety of skin tones, because if you have fair skin, you can really kind of stick to more like these shades, this first row, and then like these two over here. And if you have a deeper skin tone, you can really use that entire second row to build up, intensify the looks, and be able to get these shadows to show up well on your skin tone. I think this is a very, very smart palette of very wise color choices. You can see these deeper shades down over here definitely are very intense in pigment. There's glitter in this shade here, and also in this shade here. It's like a matte shadow with glitter in it. So they're kind of unique. I think they're kind of fun shades, and you have enough purely matte shades like this one here and this one here that you can get away with kind of having those more fun shades. So I do think it's a very versatile palette. The palette is very close to $20. It's 19 and some change. So I really think that this is a very good value if you are looking for a very versatile, everyday, but can also kind of do smoky looks eyeshadow palette. I 100% recommend this. The quality of the shadows is great. They're easy to work with, they're blendable, they're very pigmented, so I really don't think you can go wrong. So if you've been curious about checking out this eyeshadow palette, I give it my stamp of approval. I say it's 100% worth it. So if you have any questions about it, be sure to leave those for me in the comment section down below. And now I will jump ahead and show you how to get two different eye looks using this eyeshadow palette. First, I'm going to be taking the shade Iced Cotton, which is this nice taupey shimmery shade, and I will be applying it to my lid using my fingers. Next, I'm going to be taking the shade Vanilla Velvet and applying this to my crease using my MOTD Cosmetics Miss Shady Lady brush, and this is just going to help blend all the shadows in my crease, and also I am using it to highlight under my brow bone. Now I'm going to take this matte purple shade called Matte Plum and apply it to my crease using my MOTD Cosmetics Blending Bestie brush, and this is really going to be the main crease shade for this eye look. Now I'm going to take the shade Chromed Petal, which is this deep purple shade with a bit of glitter. I'm going to apply this shade using the MOTD Eye Catching Crease brush and really focus this shade on the outer corner of my lid and blend it into my crease. Next, I'm going to take a bit of Iced Cotton to blend together the Iced Cotton and Chromed Petal shade. Now I'm going to take more of the Chromed Petal shade on an MOTD straight to the point brush and line my lower lash line. Finally, I'm going to take some more Vanilla Velvet and apply it to my inner corner as an inner corner highlight using an MOTD Pencil Me In brush. For this look, I'm going to start off with the shade Strobed Champagne, which is this very glittery kind of gold shade, and apply it to my lid using my finger. Applying this shade with my finger definitely helps to reduce the amount of fallout and really get the most pigmentation out of this shadow. Next, I'm going to apply the matte brown shade Soft Bronze to my crease using an MOTD Blending Bestie brush. This is going to be the crease shade for this eye look. Next, I'm going to be using the shade Burnt Mocha to line my upper and lower lash line, and I will be applying this eyeshadow with my MOTD Cosmetics straight to the point brush. To finish off this look, I will once again apply Vanilla Velvet to my inner corner as an inner corner highlight using the MOTD Pencil Me In brush. hope you enjoyed this review and the 2 tutorials using this eyeshadow palette. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also check out my Instagram. I'll have my handle down below. I'm at naturallybeautifulgirl. I will post a picture of the swatches of the eyeshadow palette on my Instagram page, so if you want to see it in picture form, you can check it out there. Be sure to also hit the bell button on YouTube so you're notified of when I post new videos. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!